Welcome to the Greenhouse. The Greenhouse is a social strategy game in which a group of players compete in challenges, purchase powers, and vote each other off in an attempt to be the last player standing. In each cycle, a competition is held to determine the Greenhouse, a group of players that gain powers for the round. 2 players from the Greenhouse nominate players for Banishment, followed by an auction utilizing the in-game currency, seeds, to purchase items to either save a player from nomination or gain power in the game. At the end of the cycle, a vote is held for Banishment, where one player leaves the game. While complex, the mechanics of the Greenhouse all click together for an intense format and enjoyable viewing experience. Alliances must be forged, lies must be told, and at the end of each cycle, someone has to go home. It's the ultimate game of negotiation. Do you strike now, or save your power for later? Do you save a valuable ally, or do you save your seeds? This is the Greenhouse. Each standard round of the Greenhouse follows the same timeline. Firstly, players compete in a Greenhouse competition. Following this, the top 3 finishers in that competition attend a flower-picking ceremony, where they determine their powers for the week. Players that did not finish in the top 3 compete in either a seed or immunity challenge, where they may either win immunity or 2 of the in-game currency, seeds. After these events, players are given a determined amount of time to discuss the game. Concluding this discussion period is the nomination ceremony, where 2 of the Greenhouse powers, the Sunflower and the Rose, are used to nominate 3 players for Banishment. This is then followed by the auction, an open discussion period where players can utilize seeds to purchase different in-game powers, one of which has the ability to remove a player from nomination. At the end of this time frame, the 3rd Greenhouse power, the Tulip, blocks 2 eligible players from voting. Players then attend the Banishment ceremony, where players that are not the Sunflower or Rose, nominated or blocked, vote for which player they would like to see leave the game. The cycle culminates in the vote reveal, where the player with the most votes is asked to leave immediately. For ease of understanding, we will go through the rules of each section of the cycle individually. Starting each round is the Greenhouse competition. This competition is typically completed individually, but cases may arise where players are split into teams. These challenges range from physical, to strategic, to social. The players that place in the top 3 of this challenge are named the Greenhouse for that week, and proceed into the flower picking ceremony. There are 3 Greenhouse powers up for grabs: the Sunflower, Rose, and Tulip. Here's the function of each flower. The Sunflower nominates 2 players for Banishment. Both players nominated receive a seed. At the nomination ceremony, the Sunflower nominates first. The Sunflower does not vote at the Banishment ceremony. The Rose nominates 1 player for Banishment. This player will not receive a seed. At the nomination ceremony, the Rose nominates second. Additionally, the player holding the Rose must break a tie at elimination, but does not vote in the initial vote at the Banishment ceremony. The Tulip blocks 2 players from voting at the Banishment ceremony, and does so after auction results are called, but before votes are cast. Blocked votes are banked for free use in future rounds. If blocked, nominated, or as the Sunflower or Rose, a player cannot use banked votes either for that round. The Tulip does vote at the Banishment ceremony. The flower picking ceremony takes the form of Yankee Swap, in which their order is determined by placement in the competition. All 3 Greenhouse players are immune for the round and cannot be nominated. The 3rd place player moves first and chooses a flower. The 2nd place player then may either steal the flower from the 3rd placer or pick one of the remaining 2. If they steal, the 3rd placer can then choose from one of the other remaining flowers. The 1st placer then has the option to steal from 2nd or 3rd, or take the last remaining flower. Here's an example of how the flower picking ceremony may go. The 3rd place player picks the Tulip. The 2nd place player moves second and steals the Tulip. This forces the 3rd placer to choose either the Sunflower or Rose, in which case they choose the Rose. The 1st placer steals the Tulip, meaning the 2nd placer is forced to pick the Sunflower, as you cannot steal after being stolen from. This would make the 1st placer Tulip, the 2nd placer Sunflower, and the 3rd placer Rose. Either simultaneously during the flower picking ceremony or after flowers are chosen, the remaining players compete in a seed immunity competition. Players are typically given 1 minute to decide whether to compete for 2 seeds or immunity for that round. Whether this is done publicly or privately is based on the challenge. Each of the 2 holds 1 winner, and the winners are public knowledge. In certain instances, there will be no seed immunity challenge, and instead 5 players will enter the Greenhouse. In this event, the 2 other items available in the Greenhouse are immunity and 2 seeds. Once flowers are picked and the seed immunity winners are decided, players are given time for a discussion period. The discussion period ranges in length depending on the pace of the game and how many players are remaining. In this time frame, players split off from the group and are allowed to have private conversations. At the end of the discussion period is the nomination ceremony. At the nomination ceremony, the Sunflower first names 2 nominees. They cannot choose other greenhouse members or the player that won immunity. Both nominees receive a seed. Then, the Rose names their nominee. Once again, they cannot choose other greenhouse members or the player that won immunity. Before moving into the auction phase, now is a great time to talk about seeds. Seeds are the currency of the greenhouse, and may be earned in a variety of ways. Seeds may be earned via being nominated by the Sunflower, winning the seed challenge, receiving seeds from another player, or in a seed hunt. Seed hunt tasks are activities that put extra seeds into the game. These may be social, twists put into the game, or as simple as seeds hidden around the play area. Some challenges will also offer dilemmas that could allow you to earn extra seeds. It is important to note that players are allowed to pass and trade seeds during discussion periods. Typically, at the start of the season, all players start with 1 seed. If players are banished with seeds or banked votes still in their possession, those utilities are immediately burned and removed from the game. Nominated players are given an opportunity to transfer these items to another player before the vote is revealed. Following nominations, players move into the auction period, where players are allowed to purchase powers utilizing their seeds. This period of the game is simultaneously a second discussion phase, meaning that players are allowed to split up and talk. During this period, players are allowed to use their seeds to bid on items. Here's how bidding works. Players may place seeds on items at their leisure. The player that has bid the most seeds on an item at the end of the auction period receives that item. If you have been outbid for an item, you can rescind your bid on the item to receive your seeds. This is also done automatically at the end of the phase. Seeds are not burned if they are not the top bid for an item. You cannot rescind your bid if you are the top bid for the item. Players are allowed to tie a bid if they do not have seeds exceeding that tied amount. For example, if the current bid is 4 seeds, that can only be tied by another player if that player has exactly 4 seeds. If there is a tie at the end of the auction, the tie is broken by random draw. There are normally 4 items up for bid during the auction period. Here is how each item works. Firstly, the seed count may be used to learn the number of seeds and banked votes held by players active in the game. When purchased by a player, they are shown a spreadsheet of where every seed and banked vote in the game is held. This item costs 1 seed, can be purchased at any time, can be purchased multiple times throughout a cycle, and does not follow typical auction rules. As soon as it is purchased, the count is shown to the buyer, even if the auction has not concluded. Next, the uproot can be used to remove a player from consideration for banishment the round that it is purchased. The starting bid of the uproot is 3 seeds and does follow standard auction rules. This item must be used or discarded the round it is purchased and can be used by any player. If it is not used to remove a player from consideration, it is burned and re-enters the store the following round. Only 1 may be purchased per round. The time for the uproot to be used is at the conclusion of the auction after it is passed out. The uproot can be used on another player, even if the holder is nominated. When there are 3 nominees, there is no replacement nominee if the uproot is used. If used, banishment would begin with 2 nominees. The green thumb is an item that can be used to swap places with a player in the greenhouse prior to the flower picking ceremony. The starting bid for this item is 4 seeds. Only 1 green thumb may be in the game at a time, and once purchased, is removed from the store until it is either used or the holder is banished from the game. It may not be used in the round that it is purchased, and must be used after the greenhouse competition, but before the greenhouse is separated for flower picking. When used, the player that uses it inherits the placement in the ceremony of the player they replace. For clarification, the green thumb must be used by the person usurping someone in the greenhouse. For example, if the green thumb holder is already in the greenhouse and wants to bring another player in, they must pass the green thumb to that player to use on themselves. Additionally, a player in the greenhouse can usurp another player in the greenhouse. For example, the 3rd place finisher can play the green thumb to swap with the 1st place finisher. Finally, the Venus flytrap is used to effectively cancel a round and grants the holder the ability to immediately eliminate any player of their choice, regardless of if they are immune. This means that greenhouse players or the person that won immunity are all eligible for banishment. Once bid on, the round is cancelled. This item can only be purchased once and, after being used, is removed from the game permanently. At all times, the starting bid for the Venus flytrap is the number of players remaining in the game plus 2 seeds. For example, at Final 11, the price would be 11 plus 2, making it 13 seeds to bid on. If there are bids placed on the uproot the round the flytrap is purchased, those bids are returned to the players. Green Thumb is still purchasable, as is the seed count. All items except for the seed count are transferable, including the Venus flytrap. Any bids on other items are revocable under the purpose of bidding on the Venus flytrap. After the auction is closed and the uproot decision is made, the Tulip chooses 2 players' votes to block. These players must already be eligible to vote, and they cannot block themselves. The round concludes with the Banishment ceremony. The ceremony starts with nominated players giving their pleas for why they should remain in the game. Following, players eligible to vote are one by one sent to vote. When they cast their vote, they may use any banked votes in their possession as well. A reminder that any seeds or banked votes held by the eliminated player are discarded. They must give their seeds away before banishment if they want them to remain in the game. Nominees, the Sunflower, Rose, and blocked players cannot vote. The Tulip is allowed to vote. Banked votes may only be used by players who are otherwise allowed to vote. Banked votes are tradable, so nominees or flowers who want to use a banked vote must trust it to a voting player. Once all votes are cast, the vote count is read publicly. Individual votes are not announced, so players will only be privy to the number of votes cast for each nominee. The player banished must say their final words and leave immediately. After this, the next cycle begins. The normal cycle continues, disregarding any potential twists, until the final 9. Starting at the final 9 and moving through the end of the final 5, multiple adjustments are made to the format to accommodate for less players. Starting with the greenhouse, the Tulip is removed as a potential option and replaced with 2 seeds. Only the players holding the Sunflower and Rose are immune from nomination. The 2 seeds holder is still vulnerable for nomination. The Sunflower now will only nominate 1 player. This player still receives a seed. This means there will only be 2 initial nominations. The seed immunity competition is no more, meaning that after the flower picking ceremony, players move directly into the discussion period. With there being only 2 initial nominees, if uproot is used on a nominee, a replacement nominee must be named by the flower that made that nomination. The replacement nominee cannot be the person who used the uproot or the nominee taken down. This means, because uproot is passable, a nominee could hand the uproot to a player not up for banishment and have that player use the uproot on them, making them both immune from renomination. A player who was Rose or Sunflower cannot compete in the following greenhouse competition. However, the player who gets 2 seeds in the greenhouse may compete. A player can still play Green Thumb to enter the greenhouse, even if they were in the greenhouse the prior round. These rules only apply starting at the final 9. This means that the final 10 Sunflower and Rose can compete in the final 9 greenhouse competition. Additionally, every player competes in the final 5 greenhouse competition, even if they were a flower in the final 6 round. At the final 4, the 4 remaining players enter the greenhouse for the final negotiation. At this point, finalists must use all remaining seeds and banked votes to vote for 1 person to receive final immunity. Each seed and banked vote counts for 1 immunity vote. Players cannot use their seeds and banked votes to vote for themselves. However, seeds and banked votes may still be passed to another player to be used. Only seeds and banked votes carried to the final 4 may be used to vote for final immunity. Players are not given a vote by default. Voting is similar to previous rounds, as players are taken away one by one to vote. There is no auction at the final 4. However, players may still purchase a seed count. The winner of the popular vote at the final 4 eliminates the 4th placer publicly. However, if there is a tie for final 4 immunity, the 2 people in the tie become the final 2. If the tie is between 3 people, the person not included in the tie is eliminated. This means, depending on how the vote turns out, there may either be a final 3 or a final 2. In the event of a 4-way tie, players will perform the round again with only 1 vote each. If a second 4-way tie occurs, players will vote again with only 1 vote, but are allowed to vote for themselves. If there is yet another 4-way tie, a challenge will determine the winner of final immunity. The season ends with the final 2 or final 3 facing the jury. The jury typically begins at the final 11 and has 9 jurors for a final 2 and 8 for a final 3. Jurors are sequestered together and are allowed to discuss amongst themselves, culminating in a jury roundtable. At the finale, jurors may direct statements or questions towards the finalists. Finalists are also given time to give opening and closing speeches. The finale culminates in the final vote, where jurors individually cast their votes for the winner of the season. In the event of a tie for first place at the final 3, the 3rd placer will cast their vote to break the tie. And that's all the rules for the greenhouse. As a reminder, twists may be presented throughout each season that could shake up the game in unpredictable ways. However, this is the standard format for the game. It may look intimidating at first, but once it clicks, it's extremely satisfying to watch play out. I hope you enjoy watching or playing the greenhouse.